before we actually start, I hope you've been enjoying my special picture. This was sent to my husband by his cousin, and I have the story behind this bottle of beer, and I'm going to share it with you. It has to do somewhat with Christmas. So on December 21st, 1945, this is Jim Trimble. So December 21st, 1945, we left Portsmouth, England to return to Canada. We were on the Queen Elizabeth, a luxury peacetime liner, which had accommodations for 5,000 passengers. But we were 20,000 troops on board, returning from the war. We were crowded. In the mid-Atlantic, we ran into a fierce North Atlantic storm. We couldn't go on deck, and we couldn't smoke. But December 25th, Christmas Day, came in that time, and for our Christmas dinner, each soldier was issued a bottle of beer. My brother Jack and my friend Walt were both seasick and couldn't drink theirs. So I drank them both and brought my issue of beer home as a souvenir for my mother. She kept it intact for 40-some years and then returned it to me. On December 25th, 1995, it was 50 years old. So on December 25th, 2015, it was 70 years old. It's never been opened. We landed in New York December 28th, 1945, and traveled by train to Toronto and home. That bottle of beer now has been passed down to Jim's oldest son, and he still has it. Pretty interesting. Just one of those nice little tidbits in the family. Now, Joyce was talking to me on the way home, so before we actually started the meeting proper, Joyce wants to tell you something.
At just before noon today, I got a phone call. Pick it up, figured it was a 613 number. And it was a voice, come on, this is the CRA calling you, Canada Revenue Agency. And they threatened me with all sorts of stuff, the RCMP, I don't know what all they threatened me with if I didn't phone them back. I just hung up on it and didn't pay attention because I knew it was a scam. It's already been on TV a couple of times about it. So I never thought anything more of it, but at 4 o'clock I got the same phone call again. So I thought, oh, I wrote down the number because I have the call display, and I just phoned down to the police station, told them about it, and they said, oh, thank you for phoning, we wish everybody would phone when they get it. And she gave me a place to phone where they collect all these scams and how many people are being phoned, because it seems they target different areas. They were targeting some area up around Toronto last week, that's when I heard it on TV. So I guess maybe they're starting to target the Oshawa, Durham area. So I just thought I would warn everybody, if you get a warning that you owe all sorts of money to Canada Revenue Agency, you don't, because they do not phone you, and they definitely do not send out a recorded message, and that's what this was, because I tried to say something to the guy and it just kept right on going. So just warning, and let all your friends know about it, because some people have actually been caught by it.
Okay, some people have been caught by it and actually given them money.
Okay, so here's our agenda for the evening. Welcome, everyone. Does everybody know where the exits and the washrooms are? Out that way and that way? Okay. And do we have any first-time attendees here? One. Okay. Well, welcome. Not to center you out, but we'd love you to stand up and tell us what your name is and what surnames you are researching. And they don't have to be surnames around the Durham region, because we've got all sorts of areas that we are individually researching in.
Okay, my name is Terry Goulet. I live in Oshawa. And this is a friend of mine, Stacy, from Brighton. She told me about the meeting, and I would know before her, since I was here, but I also saw it in the paper, actually. And what names I'm researching, my maiden name, Snell, S-N-E-L-L. My husband's mother's maiden name, which is Heinrich.
So Nell and Heinrich?
Heinrich, yeah, she came from Yugoslavia.
Okay.
And my mother's maiden name, Reed.
And Reed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
R-E-E-D.
And we have a list at the back that you can
I
sign.
did
Sometimes we manage to match people up. Okay, well, the big news over the holidays, I'm sure you've all heard it by now, is the demise of Family Tree Maker. Although it's not quite as bad as that sounds, because they are going to support the users till the end of 2016, and you can keep using the program after that. It's just they won't support you anymore. So you don't need to do any big drastic change immediately. You've got time to look around and look at other programs and ask other people what they're using. So how many here are using Family Tree Maker? Oh, okay, 5. Good. Well, time for you to start asking other people what they prefer. If you have a Mac, you can ask me, because I've got Mac programs. And I think, Dan, have you done reviews on Mac?
No, I have not.
Okay. But if you've got a PC, there are about 3 fairly good, robust programs you can download and trial for free and see if you like them. And that's Legacy Family Tree, Roots Magic, and the one from My Heritage, I think it might be called Family Tree Heritage or something like that. So those 3 have free demo versions for you to play around with before you make up your mind. And I had a question from someone during my holidays, and I said, oh, well, just go on Family Search, and they've got all sorts of these wonderful videos you can go, and then I went to try and find them. And they're not really easy to find. Of course, I went through everything I could find on the FamilySearch.org website, and then I thought, well, why don't I just Google it? So I did, and that's actually how I got to this. And they call it the Learning Center with the American spelling. Don't forget, it's E-R, not R-E. And when I got there, I had a quick look through it again, and they've got things organized by place, by skill level, by subject, format, or language. And then, as you keep scrolling down the page, you get the most popular courses listed, and new courses listed. And then at the very end were the ones I was looking for, which was beginner courses. And they're called 5-Minute Genealogy. So, and there's now 21 episodes. I think when I first saw them, there was 5 or 6 episodes. So there's 21 now, and they're less than 5 minutes each. You can probably go through the lot of them in an hour and a half if you want to be refreshed on any particular basic point. So I just thought I'd share that with you. It took me a while to find it again. If you want to just put in FamilySearch.org, just do /Learning Center, and it'll get you to the part of it. You just can't get from the main page for some reason. And over the holidays, the conference announced the full lineup of speakers and the program for Genealogy on the Cutting Edge, Toronto, June 3 to 5. It's going to be held at the International Plaza Hotel, which has been through probably about 10 name changes. It's the old Skyline. It's near the airport. It's been, I don't know, the International Skyline, the Doubletree something or other. But it's the same one that Toronto has held it at in 2010 and 2004. And I just thought I'd grab a few of the big name speakers out of the States that are coming. Well, 5 out of the States and 1 from Ireland. And Judy Russell, who's a legal genealogist, Stephen Young, who's Family Search, Lisa Louise Cook, who's Genealogy Gems, Cece Moore, and she's the genetic genealogist behind Henry Louis Gates Jr.'s Finding Your Roots program. And she has a blog that's very interesting because if you go into it, she sometimes tells you about the stuff that ends up on the cutting room floor. Thomas McKenty, who was at a conference this past year, I can't even remember. He calls himself the genealogy ninja. And Morris Gleason, who of course is genetic genealogy, particularly for adoption and through Ireland. And we had him in June, so I don't think we're going to be quite so lucky next time. Although we might be, we could probably get him again.
Sure.
Because I think the timing's going to work out.
Or any other one of those.
Yeah. Well, whether or not they'll stay up here that long, that's a good question.
Well, he's doing a webinar right now, isn't
Who's that?
he? Gleason,
Gleason? Oh yeah, there's,
with the Scottish, wasn't it the Scottish one?
it could very well be. I know that the YouTube videos have come out from the Genetic Genealogy Ireland conference. A lot of those have come out on YouTube that you can watch. So at this point, I'm going to go over to the main part of our program, which is a panel with the audience, and we're going to go over, we've had 1 submitted, Ann and Dan have 1 as well, and Steve had 1 or 2 that he wrote up, just in case we needed more material. But what we'll start with first, I think, is we'll get ourselves organized. I'll bring the microphone down with us, and we'll ask if anybody's got anything from the audience first. So I'll invite Ann DeLong and Steve Wood to come up and sit in front of the table here with me. And we'll find out how far this microphone extends. Well, I think we should be able to do it.
There's about 20 extra feet of or just pull.
Oh, just pull, okay. Now there's chairs. There's a chair up.
There we go.
Perfect. So here comes the big question if you're ready for it. Who has a brick wall?
All do.
And is ready to tell us about it? You didn't get yourself organized, I can tell. Okay. Well, Steve, I'll let you were the first one I saw, sending on the one from Don Tebble, who isn't here. I guess he's still down south.
Probably.
So we'll hopefully have this taped for him and he can watch it later. So you can tell us all about it. Do you remember? You brought
Better
paper.
than that, you brought it.
All right, good.
Don has a family, a Francis A. Hamilton, married in 1863 in Durham County, I believe, Durham County Marriage Registers, to Jane Swain. The record does give the parents, William Hamilton and Elizabeth, and William Swain and Jane Swain as the parents. Now, Don had been given a second set of parents for Jane Swain of Joseph Swain and Ann Davis. So he was questioning which set of parents were the true parents of Jane Swain, and also if we can find anything more out about Francis Hamilton. and his parents. It was actually quite easy to sort out Jane Swain's parents because I was able to find a marriage for Joseph Swain and Ann Davis, and they were married in 1861, making them a contemporary of Francis and Jane rather than parents. So I went with the original William Swain and Jane Swain and did some checking on that, and they appear to be the true parents. They are the main family in the area of the Swains, and a lot of other children of theirs were born and married in the same area as well. This is all taking place around Cartwright Township and Blackstock in that general area. And we were able to determine the mother's maiden name, which was Jane Staples. There is a fair bit of information on the internet about this family, and as a bonus, there was an obituary for William Swain in the Christian Guardian publication 1884 to 1890 by Donald Mackenzie, and it talks about William Swain, born 1st of May 1791 in County Wexford, Ireland. His father died when he was a child, and his mother was left to raise 3 sons and 3 daughters. In 1798, their house was burned by the rebels. In 1818, Mrs. Swain came to Canada with her family and settled in Cabin Township. It goes through, but it does mention that he's survived by 5 sons and 2 daughters. And it also goes on to mention his brothers and sisters. And it does happen to mention Anne, who's over 90 and still living. And her obituary also appears in, I believe it's the same book. And she, by the time she dies in 1893, they had moved to Bathgate in North Dakota. So it also gives a little bit of information on the family. So as far as his Swain side goes, there was quite a bit of information available on for Don and to track them back. On the Hamilton side, not so much. We figure we found Francis Hamilton in the I believe it's 1861 census. I don't have the.
Yes.
And there was 2 of them in Durham County, and we sorted out which one was which. Fortunately, I'll pass this to Nancy.
The other Francis Hamilton's in my family. I looked at the name and I couldn't believe it when Steve sent it on to me. And my Francis Hamilton lived around Ida, which is just north of Cabin in Cabin Township. But all his children are listed in the Manvers Township births. He actually didn't get married until about 1975, which is quite a bit later than the Francis that's in Don's tree. And he happened to marry Mary Jane Ingram, who was my grandmother's second cousin. Who knew there were 2 Francis Hamiltons? Oh, well, I'm sure there's probably more.
So we do believe that Don's Francis Hamilton is the one in the 1861 Manvers Township census, but there wasn't a lot of available information prior to that for him.
No.
It's one of the suggestions I have for Don would be to go through the early census and assessment records for Manvers Township and try and track back.
Yeah.
Because if he's really lucky, his Francis's parents may have come over and just died before we can get our hands on the census.
Yeah.
So he might be able to track them back that way, and also might get a lot of concession number out of that, where he can check the land records as well. Do you have any other suggestions?
I didn't notice what religion they were noted as in the.
It's like Episcopalian, or it's either English Church or it's EC.
EC, English Church. So it's Anglican, basically. My guys were Anglican too, maybe they were first cousins, who knows? But I haven't particularly gone further back than my Francis. And his parents were on the marriage between Francis and Mary Jean Ingram. You've got it on the front page. And his parents were oh, he's done some beautiful charts here. No. At any rate, his parents, I believe, were William and Elizabeth. If they are first cousins, because they're not obviously not brothers, not with the same name, Francis, but they could easily be first cousins. So he could go to the Anglican church in Ida for sure, and see if there were other relatives there. I know that mine were buried in that cemetery. But, and they seemed to go over to, well, I think it was Ballyduff in Manvers, to register everything from Ida. Why they didn't go down to Cavan in Cavan Township? It's beyond me. Maybe the roads were better going over to Ballyduff. Other than trying to locate Anglican records, whether they're Ida or not, Anglican records in Manvers Township would be another option. Any suggestions, Bob?
Couple of things. The first cousin thing I like. I would never presume that they weren't brothers. 20 years ago, I was at a funeral for somebody from Darlington Township, and I was introduced to their brother John and their other brother John. What happened was...
Shades of George Foreman.
Yeah, what happened was poor family in the area. They gave the one up, and they were distressed about having adopted him out informally. They were upset by it, so the next baby they had, they called the same name. Then they got back the first one. So.
And did they not have a middle name that they would?
No, they both went.
Now that's.
Yeah.
Usually I've seen another child name the same name, but the first one usually has died.
Yeah, these people, if they were alive today, would probably be about 80.
Yeah.
So that's relatively recent, and they got a few generations after. Never presume.
Okay, on the law of averages or probabilities, I would.
Yes.
Being Irish, they don't quite follow the Scottish naming pattern, but they're still very close on it often. And so I could see the grandfather being a Francis, two brothers, and these two Francises being named for their grandfather. Because my Francis he was the oldest son, so he was named, presumably. It's a theory that could be explored.
Well, now Dan has a brother James and a brother Robert James. So it's still being done today.
But they're not being called James, both of them.
Although your brothers have their middle names, right? Like your brother Craig, really his first name is Stephen.
But sometimes they do call people by their middle names, but not in this case.
Yeah, not both by the same name at the same time.
Your dad didn't like the sound of Stephen or something? I don't know. Called him Craig.
Well, I have one. Dave's grandfather is either James Francis or Francis James. And for the life of me, I can't figure out which one it's supposed to be. The birth registration is one way, the tombstone's another way, the obituaries, the second way.
I got it.
Yeah, it frustrates you intensely.
Yeah. Would the Anglican records be at the archives in Toronto?
The Anglican records for Durham region probably are in the archives in Toronto.
I mean, the whole of
The diocese,
now.
yeah. And the diocesan archives, likely. But, you know, it's too bad we don't have that area, or our places of worship person could find out for us.
The IDA records are on microfilm in with the Kawartha branch records. They were able to get microfilms up years and years ago,
Okay.
along with the Coburg records. So he could check IDA up in Peterborough.
Okay.
I believe they're at the Delafosse Library.
Yeah, and that one, you have to make an appointment with the Kawartha branch to be able to go in to see their records. Yeah, their bookcases are not open during regular hours without an appointment. If they are under the aegis of Kawartha, I wonder if there's another I really don't know the diocese, what the boundaries are for the Anglican.
I thought that the Toronto one was the head, and had the whole thing. Because I've heard of a lot of people that just phoned up.
No, I don't think so, because I'll tell you right now, I have used the Anglican diocese in Ottawa,
Oh, yeah.
and it covered Lanark County, which was my particular interest. I don't know how far west it goes, and it's almost down to Kingston, I believe. So,
You're on the edge.
I don't really know if there's one based out of Peterborough, or if it would be out of Toronto. Anybody here have Anglican research?
There's also records of Kingston.
Yeah.
There's another diocese around Kingston?
Right, Kingston. Right next to the library.
Okay, next to the library. Okay.
I'm looking for it.
I think there is also one down in Hamilton. So,
I'm interested in a record from Richmond Hill. I know the church, but I don't think it's at the church. I haven't been to the Toronto. Has anybody been to the?
Is it like-
I
is it
just
like
phoned
the-
them.
I just
Yeah,
phoned them and
I was
they-
wondering about that.
Yeah. I had to get a,
Because I've been looking and looking for these people, and it turns out they were married in the Anglican church, the rest of the family wasn't.
and keep in mind, really early on in Upper Canada, only the Anglicans and Roman Catholics,
And later Quakers.
yeah, could marry people.
Just looking
Yeah.
However,
at.
some,
That's,
That soon broke down because, of course, there weren't enough clergy. So then we had the Methodist circuit riders and stuff like that, and the government finally gave in and made it legal. But it took a while. So early on, it doesn't hurt to check the Anglican records.
Okay, Dan, did you have some slides?
Oh, was it our turn?
If you want,
Sure.
you're up then.
Okay. I guess we can see those three chairs, and I'll flip this around, and then we'll know what we're seeing.
Do you want us out of the way for a minute?
Well, while Dan is getting ready with his slides, I will talk.
I think I'm going to have to put the slides up during the break because it's going to take too long to get everything switched. So I'll just take a. Well, no, you start.
Okay, all right. Okay, so a mystery came up in the Scollie family. Now, Dan is a Scollie descendant, and his Scollies are from the Orkney Islands by way of the Hudson Bay Company. And so we have been sort of off and on researching the Scollie family, but we've been leaving a lot of it to another fellow who sort of specialized in that family. His name is Don Fowler. And so we hadn't really done as much research on that branch as maybe we should have. But we knew that most of the fat Scollies around the Peterborough area are related to Dan. However, just recently, there was a book published about an interesting incident that happened many years ago. A fellow named David Scollie was a farmer, and he became elderly, and so he had a family who was living with him, presuming perhaps he wasn't able to operate the farm himself. And then one day, the farmhouse burned down, and his remains were found buried in the basement without a head. So this piqued our interest. And we wanted to find out if this fellow was for sure related to Dan Scollie's, and if so, in what way. It's a little trickier than most because he was a bachelor, and so we can't look for his marriage record or any of his children living there or anything like that. So we've spent some time on using Ancestry.ca and found a few things, which Dan will put up the slides of what we found, because we just took screenshots
I'll do that during the break.
at the break.
This is the house, but I forgot to turn that around so that's the house that burned down. And he was found in the basement, not in the bedroom where he had been staying.
So we found, of course, from the news reports at the time, what farm was that he was living on, and we started looking at Ancestry on the census records. We only found him on one census record, and he was living with another family, but it was the 1871 census, and it doesn't have relationships. So we figure he's related, but we don't know whether was he an uncle or cousin or who, we don't know. And the people that he was living with, it was a family where the head was a fellow named James, but that's not Dan's ancestor. His ancestor's name was George, of that same generation. And so we're looking around, and we haven't been able to establish. We found him in various places, in the city or county directory, I guess, and things like that. But we haven't been able to find any, like the news reports don't say if he had any relatives or anything, And so we haven't been able to find out in what way he might be related, because there is a James in Dan's family, but there are lots of James all over the place, so we don't know if that's for sure.
What year did he die?
1894, I think, was it?
Yes, 1894.
And so you didn't find him in those other censuses?
No,
Just one?
we didn't find him in the other censuses.
No.
And we did find him, we found Dan's ancestor, George's father, Robert, in quite a few places. He's in the Atlas of Peterborough and things like that, on a farm not that far away, but not right next either. So it's sort of, we just don't know, and we have not looked at the assessment rolls yet, but all they're going to say is the head of the household. They don't give you relationships or children's names or anything. So we already know he lived on that farm, so it might just narrow down dates, but I don't think it's going to tell us who his relatives are. So.
Was there no obituary for him?
Well, I don't know. I didn't find any obituary, but there's plenty in the paper about his passing. And then many years later, they were working on, well, I'll tell you, his farm was very close to an intersection that you might be familiar with if you were going from Peterborough towards Ottawa or Norwood. When you just get outside of Peterborough on Highway 7, there's a major intersection with a country-style donut, I think, is there, and Marty Lou's, the restaurant.
Is it near where the Texaco
used to be
bypass?
Texaco, yeah. And when they were doing some road work there, the fellows found a head, and I guess that's what renewed the story about this. I guess it appeared in the paper. I have the original clipping from the Examiner, but this is not. It's too small when you print it out on one sheet to really read well enough. But the way things appear to have happened was that he had relatives on a number of farms in the area, likely relatives, and I've marked them. This is Otonabee Township. And the lot and concession is well known from these maps. He had Robert Scollie might be an uncle, but we haven't been able to make the link. His name is David, so just keep that in mind. David Scollie, bachelor, probably murdered.
Buried himself in the basement.
And there were other Scollies closer to, further over to the east and further south. There were a couple of brothers who had a farm there. Problem with Scollie, I guess, is the Scottish name from the Orkneys, I believe. They first of all came to Canada with the Hudson's Bay, and they were factors or they worked in the fur trade business. Some of them stayed, some of them went back to Scotland and had families, and then came back to Canada, so it gets very confusing, the movement that they've done. And I guess that's where we're stuck, is did they go back, or am I related? Yes, Bob?
What are the relative ages of the family that was living with them to him?
That was the Hall family. I think what happened was he was getting kind of on in years, and he needed some help with the farm.
Yeah.
So the husband and wife and 6 children moved in.
Now, were they there when he met his demise?
That's an interesting story.
Yeah.
The wife was there. The husband had gone quite a ways away on business. Then the fire occurred. Okay? So when they did find his body in that grave in the basement, by that time, I guess in the ashes when they were clearing things away, the farm had somehow ended up in their hands, the Hall family hands. You know, this is
that was going to be one of my next questions.
Somehow, I don't know whether he signed a document, he must have, but it ended up in their hands, and they moved to Florida. Well, the police were interested in this, so they extradited the person they thought might have been responsible, the only person home who was an adult, and that was Mrs. Hall. So she was brought back and tried, but there just wasn't enough evidence. So,
have you went through the, is there any police or trial records that might say that, you know, this person moved in and this is why we suspect them, this person was related or not related?
No, this is a fairly new thing that I started to find out about.
Yeah.
We saw this thing on the internet about a book written, and also that this is kind of interesting too, the Murdoch mysteries were being filmed in Peterborough at the time, some of it, and there was a hint that maybe that's what they're working on for the Murdoch mysteries, was this story. We'll have to see this season if the headless body turns up in a shallow grave.
But there are lots of places we haven't looked because we only started looking a couple of weeks ago.
I would like to, you know, like that history of this Hall family.
Yes, yes.
And
I would suggest, you know, you're not going to get a birth, right? It's too early. Yeah.
We have a date.
We have a date.
1829.
That he was born?
What, his birth, 1829.
I don't know where this came from, the date.
Might have been out of the newspaper.
I missed the year the body was found. What year was that?
1894, I think.
Yeah, well, that's when he died anyway.
Yeah.
I can't read this without glasses.
1894 was his death date. And he was elderly, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm thinking your land records might at least have a signature of him that if you connect with a birth in Scotland, that you wonder if it's his, although I don't know if you'd find another signature by him.
I see what you mean.
If you could even write his name.
Yes, there's always that.
What instruments transferred title?
Yes.
And what supporting evidence that on that there might be something?
There might be a will.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
he may have willed it to the Halls.
Yeah.
And that might.
In his ill state, he was bedridden upstairs.
Yeah.
So what was he doing in the basement is the question.
Yeah.
Dan, if you tried local histories, you know how our roots was all local history books on. You can do searches, but some of those local histories actually talk about the people and say they came from Edinburgh, Scotland, or wherever before they moved here, and he's the brother of blah, 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 and this is the family. Some of them go to that extent, some of them are based there. But
We have a fellow, see, there are a lot of Scollies from this area that moved from Peterborough, I guess I better use the mic, moved from Peterborough up to Fort William, Thunder Bay now, and that's where the rest of them are that I know are related to me. My great-grandmother was Marion Elizabeth Scollie was her name, and then she became a Goodfellow when she married. But she had close contact with a lot of these people up in Fort William, and so did my grandmother, her daughter, the only daughter in that family, and she used to visit them quite a bit, and the Fort William people would come back. They had a big ice cream factory up there, and that's what my mother remembers is the aunt coming down and making ice cream for them. Aunt Scollie, I can't remember her first name at the moment.
Busman's Holidays.
Yeah, Bob has a question?
And just a comment, you mentioned about the family keeping in touch. So I would look at not only local papers, but surrounding papers. You never know who's picked it up. And if it was my cousin in the next town, I might have mentioned it to the editor, and even some of these distant family, just in case it was ever mentioned.
We hadn't thought of, like the newspapers, I think we've got what we can from the newspapers around Peterborough, because there was stuff written at the time and then recent things. But we hadn't thought of, if they really were relatives, then it might have been mentioned in
even in a society newspaper that so-and-so is grieved by the loss of their brother.
Yes.
Well, that's a good idea. There is one person in Fort William who was doing, Thunder Bay and Fort William area, who was doing research, Bill Scollie, and he probably isn't alive now. I haven't been following up, but there's a very old letter that he wrote, or part of an old letter, recounting what the family knew about this event. It's just the bottom part of the letter.
Yeah.
And so I copied that if anybody wants to read it.
But obviously he thought there might be a relationship, even if he didn't say, because otherwise why would he put that as part of the family story? So.
And that's another tip too, like I have a common name, so if I run across other Mal family information, a lot of times I'll just throw it in my pile, because then if I ever have to prove or disprove that this one's not related, so somebody that, oh, that's the same name as me, and so you might just check there too, in case somebody's picked it up in that way.
Okay.
I think we're just about done. I will put things up during the break just for the people who are watching the slides.
So hopefully you get ahead in your genealogy.
That's a bad one. Okay, now, has any of this jogged anybody's memories of a brick wall that they have that they want to bring forward? Bob?
This was something, it's not really a brick wall, but it's something that you touched on. What programs are people recommending for keeping track of their family tree history now? I'm still using personal ancestral file. Which is long gone.
But it still works.
But it still works.
Well, this is it. You don't have to move until it's broke.
Yeah.
But you may wish to actually play around with some of the other ones. You have a PC.
Yeah, and I also have Linux, and I use Gramps on that.
Gramps has been mentioned. I've been reading some of the blogs, and Gramps was mentioned for Linux. But, you know, depending upon the different authors' biases, you know, it kind of went to Legacy Family Tree or Roots Magic or the one from My Heritage. Darn, I can't remember the name of it.
That's just one thing, if you do continue using a legacy program, might be a good idea, because each of these programs has a sort of a proprietary format, but they all will put out GEDCOMs. So it might be a good idea, if you're using a program that you think may no longer be supported, every now and then to just save your data all in the GEDCOM format, and make that part of your backup process to do that now and then, because if one day, you know, you get a new operating system and your old program won't port to it, it'd be very handy to have, not have to go find some other computer that it will work on or something, you know. It'd be very handy to have a GenCom to import into your new program.
Good point, Anne.
Anybody
Stacy?
interested by getting Rick Roberts to come and tell us what's going on?
Okay. I'll just take Stacy first.
I noticed that Legacy just jumped right in there and said, don't worry about a thing.
Yeah, Legacy Family,
will
yeah.
be able to be, you know.
Both Legacy Family Tree and Roots Magic just jumped right in there and offered specials before Christmas to people who wanted to switch over to their products.
But they promised that everything will be fine. They'll just transfer.
Yeah, and they're probably working on a way to easily transfer from, but whether they're going to make it a native transfer, like right directly from the Family Tree Maker data, or whether it's just going to be you have to export to GenCom and then import the GenCom.
I tried this with Legacy just a while ago because I was changing computers anyway, so I thought I had nothing to lose by copying my file over and installing a new program. And I had to try twice. The first time, a couple of things didn't work, and I had to change some setting, and I can't remember what it was, but then it came right in. Just I didn't have to make a GenCom.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
So did you
Was
say-
that from Family Tree Maker?
from Family Tree Maker.
At the start of the meeting when it was mentioned, I wrote down that the 3 were offered for free. Is that incorrect?
No.
No, it's not right.
Well, there are free versions of the 3 that I mentioned.
That's what you were meaning then.
Yes, but there are also paid, more advanced versions that you can get with more features. I know for a fact that Legacy Family Tree is full-bodied. There's no limit to the number of people, and if you're happy with what's in the basic one, you can just keep using it. I believe Roots Magic is the same. You know, it's not limited by the number of people in the database. And now, if you want further features, you have to pay. Now, I have to admit, Roots Magic is sometimes, well, most times, at like conferences in the States and around Christmas time, it's like $20 for the program and the book. So it's quite reasonable. Now, the one from MyHeritage, I don't know very much about, but I would imagine they probably would have followed the lead of Legacy Family Tree and Roots Magic.
I was with a friend one time and she put in a free Legacy and it really slowed down the entire computer. to the point where
Because
I
now
couldn't
when I
see
had a
anything.
PC, Stacy's saying that a friend installed the free Legacy and it slowed down her computer. I didn't find that back when I had a PC, which is probably 3 or 4 versions ago of Legacy. It didn't seem to make a difference to the speed of my machine when I brought down the free program. But then I very quickly bought the key and got the additional features. And I don't believe they're very expensive either. I'm thinking in the region of $39 or $40. When you bought Legacy at darn near, our Reunion for Mac at darn near $100, they sound very good to me. There is a downside to having a Mac.
Joyce wanted to.
Yes,
say
Joyce
You want
wanted
me to
to.
get Rick Roberts to come down and tell us exactly what's going on and how things can work?
So Joyce is asking whether we should try and see if we can get Rick Roberts to come down. They've moved up near Ottawa now, I believe.
I know they moved, I didn't know where.
Yeah, probably back to Latter County where his family's from.
Yeah.
And see if he would come and explain to what's happening. What does everybody feel? think that would be a good topic to have?
You might be selling the replacements.
This is true.
He used to sell legacy,
Legacy,
but he got out of it. The global genealogy, he sells.
Yes, Rick Roberts is Global Genealogy.
Maybe he's watching right now.
Joyce had asked him, maybe he would.
Well, it wouldn't hurt to ask,
No,
I don't think.
It's not.
Well, he's the one that originally sold the version that's they're getting rid of, so.
Well, yes, Rick originally did Family Tree Maker, and then there was a glitch at one point, and he recommended Legacy Family Tree. And I believe he sells Roots Magic now. So, he certainly knows all the programs.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And he's many times done workshops at our conferences.
And he's been here before.
Yeah, he has been here before. He's a good speaker.
Yes, very interesting.
So maybe if they're down, if we don't get the big names, maybe if they're down for conference, we can get them on the way back. Who knows?
I'll write to them, because I gotta send in some stuff anyway to them.
Okay. So, shall we take a break now?
Okay, now, I was just listening to the audio, and you can explain if anybody's listening out there. We're hearing quite a bit of fan noise. So I guess we
Oh,
have
that's
to use
too
that.
bad.
We have to use that microphone. It's still
Okay.
audible. I mean, we can still hear, but it's annoying to hear that fan noise coming through.
I guess we've learned to block the noise of the fan out. Unfortunately, the fan noise is coming through on our video. So apologies to those of you who are listening online. Not a lot we can do about the fan noise, but we will try and make better use of the microphone. So we'll break for 10 minutes now, and then when we come back, we'll move on to business and other announcements.
I wonder what that, how on that, like, you know, they usually just stop the noise of the wind.
No, it's not wind, it's actual noise.
Yeah, I know, it's actually noise, but it's not.
Now you notice it says Dan Scollie. That's a misprint. It's David. It's really David Scollie.
As far as we can see, there wasn't any wind in Scully around that area.
Here,
Good trick, we just take.
let me focus in on that.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed that if you handwrite the word Daniel and the word David, and you're a little sloppy, they both look exactly the same. Because the B looks like a N, and then EL looks like a D.
Yeah.
So we have these old type things from like 30 or 40 years ago that Dan got from his grandfather.
Yeah, I guess it would be that long ago. It was, I think, carbon paper, wasn't it?
It
That had been typed on.
Now see if you can sleep.
Oh yeah, that's Bill Scollie wrote that at the bottom of his letter. But I don't think the people, if anybody's watching on the streamed version, will be able to read that. But I'll leave it up there for a while.
I should turn around.
I noticed the bomb threat was in 2016 taxes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
here's another interesting thing. The farm of Robert Scollie, probably his uncle, is located right where the railroad from Rice Lake went through to Peterborough. They called it, the farm was called, it says here, Bluebell Valley. And that's the lot for Robert Scollie. Oh, maybe I could show. Maybe I could show where the Lansdowne Street bridge would eventually be. Right here would be the bridge going across the river, and this would be Highway 7. So you go along here, and when you come right to here, that's that intersection where David Scollie had the farm. Where that house was.
According to the article that we've got on the table here, it says enough family farm. It sounds like there was a will. Oh. So it is worth checking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Will they be in the land records?
Yeah, that nice type one came out of a book that was produced in '75, I think, and I'll just pop into it. This book, Forest to Farm, by Gail Nelson of Keene. And that's where those maps, a couple of those maps came from in that paragraph about the Scollie family.
In his death, the result is sensational trial details of which are included elsewhere. So,
I wonder if it would have a bibliography.
Yeah, where did I find it? No, I don't know.
Put it in the notes app, see what you find. You got the title to check some of the local libraries too.
Well, I
Don't
think
stand in front of the camera.
I did copy some pages now, but mainly because it mentions Scollie. And that's the text.
That's quite an interesting story.
Yeah, there's some interesting bits.
Yes, but
David and the law too.
see, it says possibly.
was Judy here some time ago?
You just start with
Yeah, you were actually doing somebody else there. Whatever. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It wasn't talking for a minute, but whoever it was, I can't wait.
So I wouldn't do it.
I couldn't even say I wouldn't use it in a cottage.
Change things.
It affected that way. Remember, that was the, But she just, I figured she got interested in that thing.
And it's not that she's being immediate answer.
Reasonably close. Highly unlikely.
If you can take your seat, we'll start again. Can you take your seats, please?
Naughty, naughty.
Okay, we've got a slight project, a small project, but an important one that has occurred over the last several months. And I'm going to ask Roger to come up and tell us about it. And I will show you where it is on our Facebook group page.
It's on the group tender page.
As most of you may know, we had an esteemed member here, Bessie Gannon, who passed away a few years ago. And as part of her legacy, her holdings that were in her house were divided up. We received some of that material. Charles Tawes, who was at Bowmanville Museum, received some. And I believe John Sabian at Pickering received some. In amongst the stuff that we received is up at our office at the airport. And amongst those boxes of material, there were a number of pictures. Photographs dating from the 1860s up to, I'd say, 1980s. The unfortunate part is that there are probably 200 of them that aren't identified in any way, shape, or form, other than sometimes the photographer's studio was on there. There's the odd mention on back, such as one I recall, Uncle Herb's house in Los Angeles. Very nice. It's a wonderful statement, but and Mary's cousin. Who these folks are, we don't know. So I took all those things home. I scanned them all and brought them up to the office and gave the stick to Dan, who put them in our computer on our members only site.
No, it's actually on our Facebook page.
Oh, on our Facebook page, I stand corrected.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to Dan there, and apparently Dan has had one reply so far, somebody potentially identifying one of the photographs.
Almost all the people in one of those group photographs.
Wow.
Now each of these photographs has I put little tabs on them, and they're all identified by a number. And I have a spreadsheet with, includes all the information that I found on the backs or fronts, including the studio names. And
That's not on these yet.
That's not on here yet. I'm going to send that off to Dan here in the next couple days, which may be of help to some people. Amongst all those 300 photographs that were almost all together, I myself managed to find about 25 of them that were related to me, which was a real bonus.
Can you mention the area that they were found?
Quite a few of the studios were in Bowmanville, Whitby, Oshawa, Orono. There were some from Los Angeles, Chicago. They were scattered around, but Bessie Gannon was related, as most of you know, to just about everybody. And in fact, a lot of the...
Except me.
And quite a few of the people that Bessie was related to, I'm related to. And some of those names are Rundle, Ashton, Walter, Nance Kibble. And they all are from the area from basically Pickering to Bowmanville up to Port Perry area. That's the geographic area of most of them. However, there are some photographs from Chicago and LA, which could be relatives of hers that went there for whatever reason. But it's a shame that we can't identify a lot of these people. I'm sure a lot of other people here probably have shoeboxes full of these things too, that we don't know who they are. And perhaps that's a project we could do as a group to get some of these things up on our Facebook or someplace like that. And hopefully we can get some response as to who those folks are.
Talk a little bit about that one?
Good numbers.
No, I do not know who that is, but it was very nicely labeled on the back. This is on the back of that photograph, like 2 living room, 5 upstairs, 4 front window. It was nicely labeled, but no information as to where this house is or who lived there. Just these are rooms in the house. It's wonderful.
Can I ask what her last name is? Bessie, was it?
Bessie Gannon.
Bessie Gannon.
Gannon.
She was one of the originating members of this group, and she passed away, was it 3 years ago? 5 years ago. And Bessie's resting at the Zion Cemetery at a place called Mitchell's Corners. But she had connections to everybody and anybody.
She was born in Mountjoy, I believe.
Her maiden name was Mountjoy, and her married name was Gannon. She was also connected to the Robinson family and was co-author of a book on that family. The Robinson being part of the Robinson house down at the lake. Yeah, so these are some of the pictures here.
Thank you, Roger.
You're welcome.
So just in case you didn't follow me as I was going along and clicking, if you go to our Facebook group,
Or the page, there are 2 things. The reason I did that is I didn't realize pages would allow you to make something called an album or a group of pictures and give it a title. And Mark set it up so there's folio 1, folio 2, and so on up to folio 9. And I wanted to keep that organization. They had already set it up that way. And then I went to our group, which was supposed to take the place of our page, our Facebook page, and found out, oh, what do you know, groups are now allowing albums as well. So we've got it in 2 places. There are different people who are members of the group and different people members of the page, so we'll just hope that a lot of people can start identifying and sharing that information.
yes, we do maintain both the Durham Region Branch page and the new Durham Region Branch Facebook group. So when you go on to Facebook and type in Durham Region OGS, you'll get to this group that you can join if you haven't already. And Dan or I will let you in, there's no problem that way. And when you get there, underneath our big logo at the top, there's a place to click photos. Then when you get into photos, you need to click on albums, and that's when you come up with this page showing all the different folios that Rogers has set up. And please, if you recognize anybody, let us know. Post on it and let us know. Okay, whoops, we did that already. So, B, is there no correspondence? Okay. Sheila, do you want to do a brief treasurer's report for us, please?
Okay, as of today, the balance in the current account is $5,853.12. In December, our deposit was $18.70 and withdrawals $669.91. I did receive an email though from OGS, and our membership payment for January, early January, is $1,573, and our donations are $2,034.
So to those of you who made a donation to us, many thanks. Joyce, was there anything you wanted to say about the upcoming meeting in February?
It's going to be the girl from the library here, the genealogist.
She's the genealogy and local history librarian?
Yeah, there's two of them. She's one of them.
Okay, so they're the Oshawa Library, the main branch here, will be the focus of next month's meeting. And Laura McEwen is going to, the genealogy librarian, is going to come down and talk to us about the resources here in the building. Depending upon the numbers at the meeting, maybe we can even persuade her to do a little tour, although they weren't rushing to offer that, were they?
No, they said that was too narrow, and in the evenings, people are using the stuff a lot.
Yeah, they didn't feel that we'd be able to all fit in there.
No.
Okay. DNA Special Interest Group. We were asked about that, and we've set up our first meeting. It's our formation meeting where we're going to sit down and find out what night of the week and what week of the month everybody prefers, what kind of plans and hopes they have for the special interest group. It will be at the Durham branch office, which is 1000 Stevenson Road North, if you want to put that in your GPS. Where it actually is at the base of the NavCan Tower, and on our website is this map on how to get there. One thing you need to know is you have to turn north on Stevenson off of Rossland. You can't get to the NavCan Tower from Taunton. Keep that in mind. Now, before we go to the draw, is there any other business anybody wants to bring up, or any questions? Or do you want us to, Steve still has a few brick walls, if you want to brainstorm on that one.
We could do one.
We could do one. I think we should. So Steve, bring out your best brick wall.
I don't suppose you printed off that page that I sent you?
No, but I could probably find it in my, emails here.
Well, I forgot to print it off. I was doing it in a hurry. My wife has family of, well, should I be using the microphone or is it still getting feedback?
I think if you're this close to the camera, you're fine.
Oh, that looks okay. My wife has a family, William Proctor and Ann Mason. They married about 1833 somewhere in England. They had a daughter, Eliza, born in England about 1835. I have the complete date from the Quaker records and probably from her tombstone as well. Then they came to Canada at some point, and The only other child known is a Thomas. He was born about 1838 in the US, probably New York State. I have a possible shipping. Oh, okay, that'll help. That was easy. Yeah. Okay, so far we're doing pretty good. Born about 1802, and then his wife Anne was born 1816. They're in the 1851 through 1881 census of Pickering Township. Religion was Church of England in all of them, and his occupation was farmer, and called gentleman in 1881. The IGI, the International Genealogical Index, which nobody uses anymore, but is still very helpful, and I probably got this years ago, but it's still relevant. Best bet, Eliza Proctor, christened 1835 in Lincolnshire, England. I cannot find a marriage for William and Anne, so I do not know if that is actually her or not. She was the only Proctor baptism in those records, but there were lots of Masons in the area, which kind of makes sense. Quite often to be married and in the wife's parish, so if I'm lucky, I'll find a marriage record there sometime. Her brother Thomas's descendants thought she might have been born in Devonshire. Another researcher states that they thought William was the brother of Jonas Proctor of Pickering Township, who was from Suffolk, England, and that the two brothers came over first and then sent for their wives. I have been able to track Jonas Proctor and his family in the Suffolk records, but there is no evidence of the other family there. I did come across this record in the Castle Garden records. It's a shipping list for Anne Proctor, a wife, and Eliza Proctor, a child. They came over 1837, which fits in the time period perfectly, on the ship called the Volga. And this kind of fits in with the thoughts that perhaps the two brothers came over first and then sent for their family. It fits nicely with that because the husband is not listed with them. And I have a possible death registration for Anne in 1901, probably before the census was taken. I'm not quite sure. I haven't compared dates, but I cannot find them in census records after 1881. And if this is Anne, where is she in 1891? And possibly himself too. I don't know where William is at all. I cannot find a death registration for William. And there's no monuments around that I can find. I believe I've checked the 1851 through 1871 census returns in the land part, and there was no lot and concession number. I will have to recheck that just to be on the safe side, but I'm pretty sure I could never find any land references to him. I did have one epiphany as I was typing this in, so it pays to go back over these things every once in a while. I remembered that we had directories that Brian Winter has allowed us to put up on our webpage for 1866 and 1869 for Ontario County. And sure enough, in 1866 Pickering Township, there was a William Proctor on the Broken Front concession, lot 1 in a house. 1869, William Proctor, Broken Front concession, lot 2 in a house. They used H for house and F for farm, I believe. So he's a farmer, but he's not listed as being on a farm. So he may have not had his own farm. But on also in 1869 is a Thomas Proctor, Broken Front, lot 1, which that was the son's name, Thomas. So it's quite possible that this is the correct location for the family in the 1860s. So I now have something to go on with land records to double check.
Yeah. Now, I think Pickering Township had several ranges in the Broken Front. So you'll have to watch for that. And And then a part of the Pickering Township actually went over to Scarborough. So it depends upon how early or late.
If it's
not
lot
really
one-
that early, yeah. So land records.
Yeah, but to be honest, if he's not in the census land records, he probably did not own any land. That's what I'm afraid of.
Well, you might get lucky with, I don't know, a lease or something like that.
Yes.
A house. It's hard to say. Now, when they came over on the Wolga, was the Jonas's wife and children with her or not?
Not that I can see, no.
No. So that's not supporting the two brothers coming together and sending for the wives together.
Unless the wives came separately, but
Yes.
yeah, I agree with you there. As far as I know, I should double check that again, just in case I missed it, but as far as I know, they were the only two proctors on the boat. But I should double check that, yes. Good point.
And the christening in Messingham, that was the only proctor christening?
In that parish register, on the IGI, I haven't checked original records.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. Usually you go home to mama to have your first kid so she can hold your hand.
Yeah.
Had that happen with, my dad was born in Manitoba because of that. She went home to mama to have her child. And
Would there be any Women's Institute type records, or is that too early? I can't remember. I'm not familiar with the ones in that area.
I don't, for Pickering, I have no idea. There probably is somewhere.
now the local history room in the Pickering Library, last time I checked, which is granted a long time ago, you had to make an appointment to go in there to see the records. And they had the original registrar books for some of the births in like 1920. At the time I went through there, and that was interesting that they had the original records, not the ones that went into Toronto. They had some old Bibles. I'm not quite sure what else they have in their local history room, but that's worth a try. But you had to make an appointment, so you better double check. Just don't show up. It fell to budget cuts 15 to 20 years ago. So, I don't know. I guess you could widen the maps.familysearch.org, I think, is still active for looking for the contiguous parishes around Messingham to see if the proctors were in an adjacent parish.
They seem to be all over England. There's something doesn't hold together here, you know?
Well, that's the problem. I've got 3 different possible locations, and
And they're not anywhere near.
no, really, I have no idea, because I don't know which ones, if any, are right.
And the names are pretty common.
It's relatively common, although luckily there's not too many Mason proctor marriages, so I'm hoping eventually when more and more records get indexed that the marriage will turn up. That's kind of what I've been waiting for the last 30 years.
The online parish clerks is another place to check.
But I don't even know for sure what county, whichever, yes.
Yeah, well, you just law.
Yeah.
Worst comes to worst. But it is before civil registration, so that's what you're gonna have to do is
Even
find
her birth.
parish
Yeah,
records.
her birth missed it by 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Well, now, if you have looked at local history books, sometimes they have those little biographies in them.
I've done the 2 obvious ones for Wood's past years at Pickering is the obvious one to start with, and it wasn't there. Nothing on there. I don't think they had left a very big footprint because there was just the 2 children. But,
And then they ended up in South Dakota? Or am I
No.
getting confused here?
no,
I'm
the
confused.
son was born in the States. I tried to possibly track them in the 1840 census of the US, and I had one possibility, but I couldn't prove it was him or not. I forget, Oneida County, I think, in New York, but I have nothing to go on whether that was the correct family or not. I think the numbers fit, so it was his best guess, but nothing else to go with it.
Now, lot 1, is that adjacent to Scarborough or adjacent to Whitby?
I'm not sure which way it goes, to be honest. I just pulled that up tonight as
Yeah.
I did the
Ready
letter
to
that I
do
wrote.
it.
Aha.
Yeah.
And so that will give me something to look at. But I presume it's close to Whitby, especially if that's her death in Whitby town, because that's where she died, was the town of Whitby, if that's her. So my best guess is it's probably on this side.
Well, Anglican records,
Yeah, that's.
and there are quite a few along in there. There's one in Pickering Village, and
They're over this side. They're closer probably to Port Whitby maybe than
Yeah.
anywhere else.
so
So,
we've got those records, don't we? I know.
we don't have all their burials, no, but later on we do have some stuff. I know there's no monuments to them in any of our records,
Yeah, okay.
but possibility does exist.
Anybody else got any suggestions?
Steve, you're using the online parish clerks over in England. If the stuff you're looking for isn't there, you can write to them. I did that with one because I couldn't find some stuff on my grandfather. And about a week later, I get this great big long email. He's got everything in it. He says, oh, I just happened to be going over there on the weekend, so I dropped around. Even down to, he sent pictures of the house my grandfather was born in. And this is stuff that was back from 1840. No, it was before their births were in, so it was about 1832. And the house was still there.
That's really good service.
And yeah, well, it was just a case of he just happened to be going into the right spot, but sometimes they will just point you in the right direction too.
That's good. The Family Search Wiki for England might point you towards online parish clerks too.
Still have a challenge.
Yes, there's definitely a challenge there, but there's a few ideas.
At least I have a bit to go on.
Yeah.
Now I can do land records, so I'll see if anything turns up there.
Just as obvious, but you look for Proctor with an OR?
Yes.
Yes.
I put the
Asterisk.
asterisks in.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the vowel, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the draw.